In the summer of 1969, I was told to report to my local draft board office at 5:45 a.m. sharp. That didn't seem like a good idea, and so I volunteered to become a SeaBee assigned to United States Naval Mobile Construction Battalion 3. That's where I met this guy, Petty Officer 3rd Class John Douglas Breen. We were both engineering aides, EA-3s. NMCB-3 deployed to Vietnam in November 1970 with a main base north of Da Nang, but with oddly named details all over the country. It was, after all, the age of Aquarius. 54 years later, Doug and I decided to go back, but this time with a more upscale tour company. On our first deployment, the battalion's equipment traveled by ship, but we flew into Da Nang Air Base on Braniff Airlines, strangely enough. We then traveled north to Camp Haskins South on Da Nang Bay, where the Marines first landed in 1965. This 1967 1 to 50,000 military map shows our hooches. Here's an aerial photo of Camp Haskins from 1970, showing the officers and chiefs clubs on the beach, of course, surrounded by headquarters company buildings. The large L-shaped building center right is the chow hall. An oblique view from Google Earth today shows a 4-lane road running through the Chiefs Club. Little, if any, of the base remains. Matching the landscape allows some then and now comparisons. Here's the road out to QL1 looking southwest. And this is the perpendicular road past the chow hall on the left. The view from a guard tower looking due north across the bay. And a view looking southeast towards Da Nang and then Monkey Mountain across the bay. All in all, life in Camp Haskins wasn't so bad. For the most part, we slept in dry hooches with our bunker right outside the door, as were our bathrooms, and with automatic climate control. Our bunks beat sleeping in a foxhole, and most nights we drank saltpeter beer at the EM Club. We even got to see the Bob Hope Christmas show at Freedom Hill. After the show, I took this photo of everyone leaving. Nothing much remains of that base either. Life out in the details was a different story altogether. There were mortars to contend with and VC sappers who blew up bridges. Riding in the back of a deuce and a half felt safe until it wasn't. Security provided by ARVN personnel was often sketchy, and CB surveying was often old school. There were a few pluses. Details usually still managed to serve a hot meal rather than eat sea rats, and Navy protocols were more relaxed. Traveling to these work sites from Camp Haskins was an experience in itself. A good example is a convoy to Viet up near the DMZ in January of '71. The .50 caliber machine guns were comforting, but our ground troops were suspect. Plus, I was a clueless radio man in a flimsy Jeep. We headed north up QL1 over the Hai Van Pass on the old French road. Here's a photo I took in the same spot today. The vegetation has started to come back after all of the Agent Orange. We passed this shrine on the south bank of the Perfume River in Hue, much cleaned up today, and skirted the citadel of the old imperial city, now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Our problems on this trip weren't ambushes and snipers, but traffic jams. Villages were often crowded with pedestrians, and city streets teemed with lambrettas, mopeds, and old French cars. Today, village commerce is still open air, And city traffic has only gotten faster, but with some good old CB ingenuity. So, what did we learn by going back? Well, for one thing, the victors get to write history. The War Remnants Museum in Saigon is brutal to visit for an American serviceman. But the second thing we learned is that most Vietnamese have moved on. Half the country is younger than 33. English, not Chinese or Russian, is taught in their secondary schools. China is actually today's villain as it tries to dominate Southeast Asia, and the French are yesterday's. It's funny how things turn out.